Dan Illman, Mike Beer, 3 stakes races on tap. Opening day Friday at Keeneland. We're going to take a look at race number 8. These are 3-year-olds going a mile and a 16th on the turf. Let's take a look at a full and overflow field for the Transylvania Stakes. It's a grade 3, $400,000 is the purse, and it's nice to see a big field in here. And not only is it a big field, Mike, it is a very competitive group, including a Godolphin homebred making his first North American start after running in Dubai this winter.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, maybe ultimately, I was just going to say that it's kind of a wide open race. I think there are cases to be made for a lot of different horses, and I don't really know who's going to be the favorite come post time. But now that you brought that up, maybe it just will be that 8 musical act over here for Appleby and Godolphin and Dettori. I know this horse has never won a race on the grass yet, but you might wind up being favored here.
Past few years, it seems Appleby and Godolphin can do no wrong when they team up in North America. We won't have any pace data for him on our Timeform US pace projector. Timeform thinks this pace will be hot. Laganos has shown speed on the main track, but in his one and only turf start rallied from off of it. First World War has gotten close to the pace in some of his races. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the thick of things. Neat, the number 4, also has some tactical speed. I'm just not sure who's going to make the lead, and I wouldn't be surprised if this field is pretty well bunched up going into the backstretch.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't know when I looked at it on my own, I don't know if I thought this was going to be a fast pace necessarily. Certainly, it could be, Dan. I don't really know who's going to be on the lead. Laganos, whose only turf start came in a sprint, but rated really kindly in that race at Kentucky Downs. I don't know, man. Maybe he makes the lead in here by default, but I thought it was sort of up for grabs early.
If Timeform's right and the pace is fast, keep an eye on the 2. That's Guy Named Joe. You'll note that LP flag. That designation means this horse has the fastest late Timeform US pace rating. We'll kick things off with the number 1 Oscars World, who won on turf in a maiden race at Gulfstream 2 starts back, and then in the first start against Winners, caught a 2-turn first level allowance over the Gulfstream Tapeta. Let's watch Oscars World's performance. This pace was not fast. 24-1 for the opening quarter. Oscars World got wired, but Oscars World tries hard to the wire, and something tells me he's better on turf.
Yeah, I think he's better on turf too. And he runs fine in this race too. It's just sort of another sort of slight move in the right direction for him. He keeps improving for a trainer who's had a really good winter in Florida, Dan. Brian Lynch. All of his horses are running back to the right surface here. Great post on the inside with tactical speed. I mean, he could just fall into the right trip here and it could make all the difference.
I think you can project for a pocket trip for Oscars World, and that's usually a very good trip on the turf as long as you find some room turning into the stretch. He's very progressive. Guy Named Joe is the number 2, and this horse seems to be really finding his way lately with stakes placings over the Tapeta at Golden Gate, and then in this race, the Pasadena at Santa Anita. Although in this 4-horse field, Mike, this horse got a perfect trip. Ground saving in the pocket. The rail opens up, and he just can't seal the deal, although the winner, Stay Hot, is a nice horse.
Yeah, that's what I think that is really got to be the key here. Yes, Guy Named Joe got into the right position, had a room on the rail, and had every chance to win here. He almost did win, Dan, but Stay Hot is just a really good horse, and he could not get by him there. I thought he ran perfectly fine in that race. I don't think you're supposed to be disappointed in him at all for that performance. And I know his prior turf races, they may not look great on paper. This horse has had some trips along the way. He is a really strong finisher when he's clear with some pace in front of him, and maybe he'll catch a little pace here. I'm not discounting this horse's chances in this race at all.
Laganos is going to return to turf for the first time since his career debut, where he started going 6.5 furlongs over a quirky Kentucky Downs turf course. We're going to watch that race right now for Laganos. And as Mike mentioned, he rated very kindly for the Steve Asmussen barn. The rail opens up, and Laganos is like a seasoned professional instead of a first-time starter finishing this thing off.
Yeah, it comes right on through. You can see that when they switch to that different camera angle, that he has plenty of room in there, but he comes right on through and he runs away from these horses at the end. I think you have to like the way that he finished this race off. They rated him purposefully early in this race, just sort of sat in hand. I like this performance. He's been okay on dirt. And I wanted to get your take on this. I think his future is on the grass, in my opinion. His pedigree is mostly turf. I really like this female family. A lot of good turf horses in there. I love that they're switching him back to turf in here. And when I saw him at 20-1 on the morning line, I was like, I got to use this horse somewhere.
The one good thing about his dirt sojourns is that he proved he can get a distance of ground, and that was in that 2 life allowance race 3 starts back. In the Smarty Jones, he was pressured pretty hard in the early portion of that race. I'm not going to hold that against him. He wasn't very good, and in the Rebel, he was simply overmatched. So class relief and perhaps getting back to the surface he wants, while being 20-1 on the morning line with
Right.
tactical speed. Trust me, this horse looks like a live under the radar sleeper. Neat's the number 4, and all Neat's done in his turf career is win 3 starts around 2 turns most recently. His only loss came at Kentucky Downs sprinting. Here's his most recent start, the Texas Turf Mile, where he beat 3 next out winners, and he did so in very comfortable fashion. Now, this turf course is listed as yielding, and Neat got up close to the pace, but it's a very likable win for a horse that won very easily at the fairgrounds and very easily at Laurel before that.
Yeah, true enough. Last 3 starts since they stretched him on the grass, they're all really easy wins. You're going to want, I mean, you can go back and watch the full replay of this race we're showing Dan. The race kind of fell into his lap around that first turn. A couple of horses bolted in front of him and he just wound up on the lead all by himself in there. And he took advantage from that point, but he still looked good finishing it off. I liked those prior 2 races. I know they weren't against this kind of competition. Man, did he look good rolling through the stretch. He doesn't need the lead to be effective, but he's got plenty of speed. I think he's the toughest call in the race in here, Dan, but I think he might be pretty good.
The number 5, Tennessee, sold for 7 figures as a 2-year-old in training last year. He's by Justify. He has a turfy pedigree, and he really took a step forward when switched to the synthetic surface at Turfway Park this year. 2 gritty wins, and the horse he beat last time out, the runner-up, came back to win a 2-life allowance there by 8 1/4 lengths with an 82 buyer speed figure. I think if you're going to try the turf, you try it here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, he's bred to kind of do anything. I mean, he is bred to be a good dirt horse, but he's also bred to be to handle the turf, if nothing else. His last 2 wins are fine. I mean, I didn't get too excited about them. He ran pretty well in those races, though. It's obvious there's some talent in there. He's also got the right running style for this race. You don't generally get great prices with these connections, so I'm going to wait and see. But I won't be surprised when he runs well.
The 6 First World War was actually the favorite in the Grade 2 Bourbon at Keeneland during the fall meet of 2023. Ran fine from a tough outside post position to be beat less than 2 lengths. They tried to get him on the trail, running him twice on dirt. And then last time out in the Kitten's Joy, they got him back to turf, which I believe is his best surface. And I think he got a very good trip up close to the pace. And I question the competition he beat, because 5 horses came out of this race, and in their very next starts, none of them won. None of them once ran second. None of them ran third. The best buyer of 73. So First World War, I think, is taking a pretty steep step up in class, despite the Grade 3 lateral move on paper.
I'm not gonna disagree with that at all. Then I would just say, out of that Kitten's Joy last time, maybe the only other horse you wanted there might be the runner-up, who Brian Lynch has, Hammerstein. He hasn't run back yet, and he's very lightly raced. I think that horse is good. But First World War had the jump on him and got the job done in there. I can't knock any of his 3 turf starts. I think he's run well in all of them, and he can get another really good trip in this race. So I don't know, man. If you like him, I'm not going to argue too hard with you. I just felt like there were maybe some better alternatives in here, because he could be one of the favorites in this race.
And that's the key. I think he's a contender, and he could certainly win this race. But at 4-1, there are enough question marks surrounding him that I think you could find better value elsewhere. Lord Bullington is up next. This horse is a multiple stakes winner in Southern California, going a mile, and he exits the Guy Named Joe race that we saw earlier on. Now, while Guy Named Joe was able to save all the ground, Lord Bullington just didn't seem comfortable. He was fresh in his first start off a 2.5-month layoff, and he pulled his way along, got no cover, chased that moderate pace 3 wide, wound up 4 wide in the stretch, and he was still trying to get beat less than a length. I think he can pull a better trip. Faster pace scenario, take him back, get him covered up, make 1 run.
I think that's what he wants to do too, Dan. And I think it could be totally different for him in this race. If he gets a clean run, I think he's going to be pretty tough in this race. I like all of his turf races. And when you sort of pull his record apart and you're like, he's 2 for 6. He's got a maiden win, and he took the Eddie Logan. But so his turf debut loses to Endlessly, who I think is 5 for 6 at this point, multiple graded stakes winner. And the other 3 losses are all to Stay Hot, whose only loss on the turf was at the Breeders' Cup He's way better than he looks on paper. And I think you're right. He's a little bit dirtied up.
8-1 on the morning line to me seems fair. And here's the X factor, the number 8, musical art for the great Godolphin connections. For Charlie Appleby, who's on fire here in North America, has figured out how to ship horses and get them ready to win. Here's his most recent run. This is a stakes race at Dubai, going 1 1/8 back on March the 2nd, and he seems to be cruising into the stretch, and it looks like he's got a lot of horse. There's only one problem, Mike. The horse that beat him, Legend of Time, has the potential, I believe, to be very good.
Yeah, exactly. Stablemate of his Legend of Time, and he can't go with that horse. He's just going to run away from him here through the stretch. But this horse is very game. There's no quit in Musical Act here, Dan, to be second best in this race. So you just don't want to be too hard on him. He's a maiden on the turf coming in here. I don't think it makes any difference at all, really. I think he is a turf horse. The 2 wins on synthetic were fine performances as far as I could tell. I don't know what kind of price he's going to be in here. I'm not betting him. I'll bet somebody else in this race. And listen, we just expect these Godolphin Appleby horses to run well in these races.
The number 9 is Depiction. I think at 15-1, I've seen a lot worse 15-1 shots in my day. Joel Rosario takes up the mount for a very underrated trainer in Cherie DeVoe. This horse was a winner at Ellis Park 2 starts back. They ran him in the Bourbon at Keeneland. He ran okay, I thought, all things considered. And then last time out in the Dania Beach, we're going to watch that race right now. Look at these fractions for a 1-mile race. 25-1, 50, 13-3. He had to alter course to the outside in the stretch, and the fact that he's still running for third behind this gate-to-wire winner makes me think there's something here. Maybe not right now, but there's something for this horse.
Yeah, I agree. He ran way better than it looks in the most recent start. I actually liked the first 2 starts of his career. No figures really for him for those races, but man, I thought he ran well both times. And his Bourbon was fine. I mean, I didn't think he had some kind of huge excuse in there, but it was a pretty tough test stepping right up off of a maiden win. It's not like he embarrassed himself. You got to give him a break for that most recent start. He had no chance in there.
Can Group, the number 10, is a talented horse. He is pace dependent and trip dependent because he has no early speed. He won his first 2 starts on turf, including the Bourbon, coming from last to first. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf, he was making up some late ground. He got beat 2 lengths. They tried to put him on the Derby Trail. Fine. It didn't work out. He's now back on his best surface after a little bit of a break, and he finished ahead of Endlessly in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf. And you mentioned that horse's subsequent exploits: win in the El Camino Real Derby, win in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, potential Kentucky Derby start.
Yeah, I mean, listen, well, it'll be interesting to see if they finally bet this horse this time, because they haven't really been on him in his turf races. And listen, in the Bourbon, that was a closer's race. He sat it out. He got the clean run. Some other horses weren't as lucky as he was in there. It was still a good performance from him. I went back and watched his Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf again earlier, Dan, just because I didn't really remember him in there. He ran pretty well in that race. They just sat last, swung him to the outside, and he came with a run in there. It never looked like he was going to win, but he made up ground all the way in there. Source's turf races are good.
Phil Nelson's the most prolific winner in this race. He's won 5 times in his career. What a great $35,000 claim by Jose D'Angelo. This horse has won 4 in a row, and he won the Columbia in his stakes debut at Tampa Bay, going a mile last time out. Let's watch Phil Nelson, who's sitting on the outside. He's attacking, turning into the stretch. He makes the lead. He holds sway. He earns a career best Beyer speed figure. It's a step up in class, but if there's one thing we know about this guy, he likes to win.
Yeah, 3 for 3 on turf in his career. They're all easy wins too. He gets the job done in this race. I really like it. I like his running style, Dan. I guess it's interesting that Irad is going to take the mount this time, although I guess that's not going to go unnoticed. And maybe it just lowers his price enough to where he's not that interesting anymore. I'm not going to knock him, but I'm probably not going to bet him in this race either.
Tough post for the final horse entered in the body of the race, the 12 Cugino. This is a son of one of our favorite stallions, Twirling Candy. And Shug doesn't often win first time out, but he got this guy up to score at Aqueduct. He ran well in his first start against winners. And I wonder if he was pace compromised in the race we're going to show you now, the Colonel Liam Stakes, a race where, again, the fractions were dawdling. 25-2. 50-4. Cugino's got to try to make a run into this, and he's going to make it real close behind the gate-to-wire winner.
Yeah, he runs fine in here. I mean, they did keep him up close to the pace, but he's 3 wide around the track, and they're sort of walking. He's really game to not let go in there. I actually felt like he ran pretty well 2 starts back as well. Another race where I don't think you want to give him a huge excuse in there, but he ran fine in that race. I really liked his debut at Aqueduct last November. To me, that's a race that pointed him out as a horse who has some real ability. It's a tough post. I'm not going to be surprised when he moves forward in this race.
Of the two also eligibles, you have a maiden winner in the 13 Royal Majesty and a Fairgrounds off-turf stakes winner in the 14 Camaro Z. I want Royal Majesty of the two. I just think if I thought Cugino was pace compromised in the Colonel Liam, Royal Majesty had no shot.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I don't know that I would want either of the main track only should they get in this race, but I'm with you. If I had to take one, I'd take the 13.
Top pick time for the Transylvania, full field. Let's look for a little bit of value. Mike's going with the number 4, Neat. Unbeaten around 2 turns on turf. Beat 3 next out winners last time out at Sam Houston for Rob Actress.
Yeah, again, I just feel like he's a tough call in here, Dan, but I also feel like he's probably just going to get overlooked in this race. And I'm not sure that he can't go with these horses. He's got the right running style for it. He really finishes in his races. Rob Actress has been on fire everywhere for the last 3 or 4 months. And he enters this horse in a really tough spot here, which I think is a good sign.
I just don't think trying to rally 4 wide into slow paces in a 4-horse field is what's the key to Lord Bullington's success. He gets a bigger field, a faster pace, and maybe he gets covered up, and he's done some good things in his career. I hope he stays close to that morning line. 7-2-6-11 for me, 4-7-3-12 for Mike. It's the Transylvania on opening day at Keeneland. Best of luck.